Six Nations 2023, folks. We are 2 rounds into the competition. It's been a pretty bloody interesting first couple of weeks. We've got this week off now, and as we look forward to the third week of action, what are 5 changes I would like to see from some of the coaches in terms of their selections going into that third round? We're going to pick 5. You guys can let us know your thoughts on whether you think they are warranted at all, whether you think they are likely or unlikely, and any other changes you might like to see as well. I should say for this one, I've written up a piece for Planet Rugby, so that'll be down in the description if you want to check out that article. There may be some more details there that I miss here. Also, there's a load of other good content over on Planet Rugby, so yeah, check that one out down in the description. First guy I would like to see get a start, who's been on the bench for the first couple of weeks from France, is old Matthew Jalibert. Now, clearly he's the second choice guy for Fabien Galtier. He's behind Intermarc. That kind of makes sense. I mean, Intermarc's a pretty bloody classy player, and he and Dupont played their club rugby together. So it makes sense that that's your kind of premium combo for the French. Jalibert has had his chances at 10. More recently, he played in the Tour of Japan, and prior to that, when Intermarc was injured in a Six Nations campaign, not the last one, but the one before, Intermarc hardly played, and yeah, Jalibert got a fair bit of game time. So I think in recent times what we've lacked is a bit of Dupont and Jalibert game time together, because in the Tour of Japan, where Jalibert was there, Dupont was not. And for mine, man, going into a World Cup, I like the idea. I mean, Dupont's going to play because he's the captain. Intermarc's going to play assuming he's fit. If Intermarc was to get injured before the World Cup, yeah, Dupont and Jalibert have played virtually no game time together, apart from a little bit of game time that Jalibert's been getting off the bench. So for mine, I know they've got a really important game coming up against Scotland, and they will be unlikely to make a bunch of changes. But why not? You can't get the Grand Slam now. Why not give Jalibert a game? There's been a couple of times when he's come on for Intermarc, and I think added a fair bit of spark, especially the first game against Italy. I thought this year he came on and added something else. Maybe not so much in the game against Ireland because he came on fullback. So, but yeah, Jalibert is one guy I would like to see get a bit more game time. I think that'll add to the French depth going forward. Whether I think that one's likely, maybe not so much, but we'll see. Another guy I would like to see get a go is old Ross Byrne, and this might be more likely. This is probably the most likely one, especially seeing as Johnny Sexton, I believe, is still nursing a groin injury, and you've got Italy next up for Ireland. Now, Andy Farrell, if you've ever seen the depth chart videos, is not one to tinker. He is the most consistent coach of all the Tier 1 coaches. He does not like to chop and change. He likes to keep things very consistent. He did tinker a little bit last time they played Italy in the Six Nations. I remember Lowry got a game at fullback. I think it was his debut. And I think they might have given Carberry a game that game. I don't remember if Sexton was injured at that time or not. But yes, if there's a game where Andy Farrell's going to tinker, it's this one. And Sexton's injury, I think, leads to Ross Byrne getting a game. Now, in the past, a lot of people have been pretty critical of Ross Byrne playing for Ireland, saying he's a bit flat-footed, kind of a guy when the team's playing well, he plays well, but if they're under pressure, he's not the guy to make a difference. I do feel like in the last, I want to say kind of 6 months, he's stepped up his game to that next level where he is bossing things around a little bit more. So I think he needs a game at 10. The game against Italy is kind of one where it's not going to put as much pressure on, in theory, unless Italy really bring it to them. It should be an Irish win in all likelihood. But yeah, I would like to see Ross Byrne get 2 starts, to be honest, because I do feel like with the way Sexton's game time needs to be managed going into Rugby World Cup, you need to have somebody else who you have confidence in to fill in. It's giving me kind of vibes about New Zealand back when Dan Carter was our guy, and we didn't really have, we had a bunch of guys who filled in at 10, but none of them who was the guy if the main guy goes down, if Dan Carter went down. So yeah, I think Ross Byrne is as close to you've got at the moment. So he needs a start or 2 for mine. Another Irishman is Gavin Combs, released to his club to play at the weekend. He played for Munster. And oh my goodness, did he play for Munster. What did he get in that game? He had 3 tries. He had the most run meters of any forward in that game. He clocked over 100 run meters. I think he was second overall in the game, certainly the top forward. He had the most, I think, defenders beaten for Munster. I think he had the most tackles for Munster. He had the most carries in the game. Like, the guy was just unbelievable. Now, unfortunately for Gavin Combs, Caelan Doris is playing pretty unbelievable rugby as well. So it seems kind of unlikely that Gavin Combs is likely to get much time in green at the moment, especially the fact that he's been released to his club. But ever there was a game where he's putting his hand up to say, please give me a crack, that was the game at the weekend. So Italy's the opponent. Caelan Doris is in the form of his life. Does he displace Caelan Doris? I doubt it. Can he maybe squeeze onto the bench ahead of Jack Conan? I don't know. Again, I probably doubt it, but I think the guy, he deserves another look, doesn't he? So, yeah, Gavin Combs, based on what we've seen, I would like to see him get game time, be it from the bench, be it starting. I know it's unlikely, but yeah, I think he's in great form, and you got to reward that. A Welshman next, and I've said one of my favourites from last year is old, if I can spell, Nick Tompkins. Nick Tompkins. He's been a little bit on the outer with Warren Gatland. I'm pretty sure he's been selected for Saracens this weekend, so I don't think he's injured. Joe Hawkins has been playing ahead of him for the first 2 rounds. Now, Joe Hawkins looks like a really promising player. He's like 20 years old, seems to have a pretty good, creative mindset, ball handling and whatnot. And Warren Gatland clearly wants to develop some of the younger guys. But given the state of where things are in their Six Nations campaign thus far, I think in this position anyway, it's time to go to one of your more experienced guys. And he's only 28, so it's not like he's one of these guys who's definitely going to retire at the end of the World Cup kind of thing. He's still got a lot of gas in the tank, does Nick Tompkins. And he's another one who's really involved, man. He makes a lot of passes. He's got a good offload. And I think maybe key point is he's got a bit more experience. He's got a bit more nous. He plays in the Premiership. They're playing England, so he should have a bit of inside knowledge. And just defensively, he's more solid than Hawkins. Hawkins, I think, has missed 8 tackles in 2 games. Tompkins, I think, missed 16 for Wales last year in about 9 games. So just defensively more solid. And the way Wales, shipping some points, I think you go with Tompkins. I mean, he's not the answer to all their problems by any means. He can break tackles, he can get some run meters, defensively solid, creative. I think his creativity and connection, as his work rate with the old ball handling thing, is going to be a key factor. So for mine, you go with Tompkins against England. And the last one from England, I'm going with old Jack Walker. Now, he's the backup for Jamie George, and I'm by no means saying you start Walker against Wales in the next game. It's definitely, if he's fit, going to be Jamie George. Remember, Cowan Dickey is out for the entire Six Nations, so Walker is kind of presently filling that slot as the other guy. It's basically been Cowan Dickey and George for a number of years now. I mean, under Eddie Jones, basically no one else got a look in. Like, there's been Singleton, and then like Dolly got a call up. There's been other guys. But essentially, if it was George and Cowan Dickey, they split the minutes relatively evenly. One would come off after 50 or 60, whoever was starting. The backup guy gets 20 or 30 minutes. But when one of those guys was not available, the starting guy, Jamie George or Cowan Dickey, would play 70 plus, maybe 80. There's a few times that the reserve was an unused substitute. And Walker finds himself in that boat at the moment, and Borthwick's kind of doing what Eddie Jones was doing, which I don't think is that helpful. I don't think there's that much use in sitting a guy on the bench for 80 minutes, especially in front row. I know the Scotland game was tight, and it's, as a coach, you're kind of loath to chuck in a guy on his debut in a game that tight. But man, if you got faith in the guy, you got to play him. So he didn't come off the bench against Scotland. He did come off the bench against Italy when the game was pretty comfortable, but he got, I think, 7 minutes, which is not a lot. I would like to see a bit more faith shown in Jack Walker if he's going to be the backup guy. I don't know, mate. Give him 20 minutes, 25. Give him a proper crack. In 7 minutes, he made a few tackles. He threw a line-out throw. Had, I think, a couple of carries. So, yeah, let him get involved. If you're going to go into a World Cup, you're going to risk these guys being injured. You might not have Jamie George or Cowan-Dickie for the World Cup. Do you really want to go into a potentially important game with a guy who's played, 4 games and been on the bench for 80 minutes twice and maybe had 20 minutes of rugby? Nah, give the guy a proper genuine chance. Show some faith in him. If you selected him, so see what he can do is kind of what I would like to see. So certainly still on the bench, but just give him a bit more game time. But anyway, there you go. It's 5 changes, guys, that I might like to see. 3 backs, 2 forwards. There's certainly other guys that might be able to squeeze their way into the lineups. Ireland, as I mentioned, with Italy on the horizon, may be the most likely to tinker. Gatland may swing the axe a wee bit. I feel like France and Scotland will probably keep things relatively consistent. England likely to as well. Italy is going to be a bit of a question, but I think they've kind of found their groove at the moment. But anyway, you guys let us know your thoughts. Who would you like to see in or potentially out? And yeah, I'll talk to you guys again soon. See you later.